What's up everybody, Unrested back, and tonight we're doing something a little bit special. We're doing a special horror series on Japanese horror. And the thing about Eastern horror, and especially Japanese horror, that differs a lot from its Western counterpart is the fact that it doesn't deal with a lot of slashers and gore and blood splattered all over the place. It deals with the darkest parts of our mind. It deals with depravity, with the human capacity to push beyond depression and sadness and look into the darker realms beyond what we can even imagine or even want to imagine. And I think that's what makes it so terrifying. Tonight is a cocktail of urban legends, creepypastas, and stories that just don't even have a label. Tonight, sit down, turn your headphones up, put them on, turn off all the lights in your room, gather around your computer for the Summer Horror Special. Our first story deals with a really famous place in Japan, and that's Aokigahara Forest. If you don't know what that is, it's known as the Blue Sea, or also known as the Suicide Forest. It's had a lot of documentaries made about it, there's been a lot of shows on it. It's pretty famous around the world as a place where people go to commit suicide. Now, something people might not know is that when people go out there to commit suicide, they want somebody to find their body. They want their family to know, they want them to be able to receive the insurance money for when they die, because in Japan, your family can receive insurance money for if you commit suicide. So usually what they do is they take a piece of string or a tape and they connect it to themselves, walk through the forest, and as they bend around trees and walk up and down hills, people can eventually follow that tape and that rope back, and it might be gruesome, but they're gonna find their body and they can confirm their death. Now what people might not know is there's some people who go out there unsure of what they want to do. They don't know if they want to commit suicide. They just know that they're very depressed and they're in the depths of sadness. And what do? They go out there without the rope, without the tape. They go out there with maybe a tent and some time to meditate, to look back and reflect on their life. This happened to one such girl who went out there. I'm not going to say her name because it was actually omitted from the paper that it was in. She went out there looking to do this. And when she got out there, she didn't bring the string, she didn't bring the tape, and she traveled deeper and deeper into the forest. Sat down, set up her tent, laid in her sleeping bag, and thought about her life. Her boyfriend's gone, her job just fired her, her parents are kicking her out of her house, everything's going horribly wrong. But she thinks, I can probably make it through this. I can probably push through. I need to ganbatte, I need to gaman suru and push through this. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. She finally decides, I'm not gonna do it. She packs up her bag, she packs up her tent, she decides to head back and make a brand new day for herself. But she can't find her way back. This is the story of more than one soul that's had this happen to them. Searching for their way to get back, they can't. Most of these people have traveled off the trail so that they're not bothered by people just being tourists in the middle of the forest. They've traveled into the parts that are unexplored and not mapped out. They don't have paths and they don't know how to get back. These people end up dying as well, but it's not because they wanted to commit suicide. Their bodies are often found scrolled with different messages on trees, used from the blood of their own body because they didn't bring anything out there to write a suicide note with because they weren't sure they wanted to make a suicide note. Oftentimes, their bodies are not found hung from trees like most of the suicides are. They're found eaten by bugs. This story is called The 10-Day Dream. It comes from a Japanese creepypasta site in which the author has asked that I do not release his name and also that I do not link to the site. So unfortunately, I cannot give you extra information on this. It also begins with a warning, so please listen closely. Warning, if you hear this story, you might end up having the same dream within 3 days. This story is not known to be cursed, but I put it under the cursed category just as an extra caution. You will dream for 10 days in succession. Each dream comes with a rule that you must follow. The first day, you will dream that you are sleeping in your room. Then you will notice a girl peeping through the window. The first rule, you must let the girl in. The second day, the girl is inside your room. She is looking downward and you cannot see her face because of her long hair. She is muttering something. After a while, you realize she is saying, "Please, please." The second rule, let her come into the bed and lie down next to her. The third day, you and the girl are lying side by side. You are now able to see the girl's face. Her face is horribly burnt. The third rule, do not cry out when you see her face. The fourth day, you get out of bed. The girl says, "Let's go to the park." The fourth rule, take the girl to the nearest park without saying a word. The fifth day, when you arrive at the park, you will notice someone pushing a stroller. You look closely and notice the mother is a cat and the baby is a dog. The fifth rule, you must kill either one of them. The sixth day, while you are playing with the girl in the park, you will see an airship about to take off. The sixth rule, make sure you get on the airship in time. The seventh day, the airship is full of people who have heard this story just like you. The seventh rule, find a seat for yourself at any cost. The eighth day, after some time, red roses and black roses start raining down on you. The eighth rule, throw out only the black roses from the airship. The ninth day, the airship takes you back to the park. The ninth rule, go home with the girl and lie down in the bed again. The 10th day, you will not know what happens on the 10th day unless you have observed all the rules in the previous days. And you should tell this story to someone while you are awake. Otherwise, you will go back to the first day of the dream forever. This video I'm about to show you is just called Kill Me Please. And it was just literally a file uploaded to a website known as Nichan, which is the equivalent to one of the most popular threads and bulletin boards here in Japan. Just about everything is talked about on there, so I can't really label it any certain type of board. But supposedly, this is what happened. This video was uploaded on there, and it was just called killmeplease.avi. The girl who posted it apparently posted it with that, and then after that said, "I'm killing myself now." Of course, it was written in Japanese. A few people watching this video were alerted to it, said that it was utterly horrifying, and actually contacted the police and tried to see if they could do an IP address find on the girl and see where she lived. But apparently those people that did do that and the police that were involved didn't even find a location as to where this IP address was coming to when they found this video. Now, I'm gonna warn you before you watch this. This video has no jump scares, there's nothing like that in it. It is just plain freaking creepy, man. Be ready to be freaked out by this video. Watch it all the way through if you can. No jump scares like I said. But supposedly, it's cursed, and supposedly people who watch this have committed suicide. So watch at your own discretion maybe, or don't watch all the way through. I don't know how the rules of it are. I've watched it all the way through and I'm still here, so maybe you'll be okay. This next video is a bit strange. It's just called the folk video. And it was a video supposedly put out by a now defunct internet artist who used to only make digital songs online, and apparently near the end of his career he started to reach into the depths of schizophrenia and depression, and he said he wanted to be able to express himself through one last bit of music before he was put away in an insane asylum, where he's now supposedly still today. The name of the author is not fully said due to the fact that they only give the name of his band, which Aquinium, which I don't know if it has any kind of meaning in Japanese. As far as I've researched, I haven't found anything. Could be another language, I don't know. On top of that, if you're listening closely, it sounds like something sped up on this video, and apparently what it is a reading of a really old mythological folklore story of a demon taking possession of a person and driving them insane. The video isn't said to make you kill yourself or do anything crazy like that, but it's supposed to bring about great feelings of anxiety and depression when you watch it. Again, watch at your own peril. I take no responsibility. It's freaky, I'll give you that. I've watched the whole thing and I feel fine, but this is for you. This next story is an instructional creepypasta. It's called How to Experience Something Really Scary. I love creepy stories, and often I read them, but I'm not the one to get scared very easily. I've been to haunted places, but I've never seen anything. I've even played the one-man hide-and-seek game, but nothing happened. I got a little creeped out, but that was all. So I thought, how can I experience something really scary? And that was when I got the idea of trying out that mirror ritual thing. You know, the one where you use mirrors. I bought 6 candles to form a magic circle, and 6 mirrors about the size of B5 paper. I placed them in front of me and behind me, and I waited about 44 minutes past 4. For those of you who don't know, 4 in Japanese is shi, which also means death. It's a very evil number, like 13 might be in America. I made sure the room was as dark as it could be, closing all the curtains and turning off all the lights. I had the laptop set up so the light from it would turn on after 1 minute past 4:44. I was breathing hard through my nose, and some candles got blown out because of it. I was busy relighting them when my laptop also went black. I jumped for 1 second. The candles were almost too bright, and I got sick of staring myself in the mirrors. So finally, I blew them all out. Just then, my mobile went off, and my heart nearly stopped. It was a call from my mom, and she said, "H," which is all I'll give you for my name, "Are you at home? In your room? On the 2nd floor?" She just said those words and hung up. I thought that was weird. I tried to call her back. Then suddenly, something hit and struck the curtain-drawn window. It looked like a silhouette of a woman. I panicked a bit, but you know those things usually can't get inside if you have all the entrances to the room securely locked, right? And so, I calmed down a bit and started thinking stupid things like, let's take a picture of it. I could become famous on the internet. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't capture the thing in the picture. And after a while, the thing itself disappeared. So it was really disappointing. Then I called back my mom, but she said, "No, I never called you." And I started feeling uneasy. But I really wanted to go to the loo and went downstairs. When I walked past the mirror in the corridor, I felt something was wrong. Like suddenly, I'd become taller than I am. And though I think now I shouldn't have done it, I walked back again to the mirror to take a good look at myself. Then I screamed. I screamed. I never knew I had it in me to scream like that. There was a woman sitting on my shoulder, grinning from ear to ear, head banging like crazy. I somehow made a dash for the loo and locked myself in and started trembling all over. Then my mom called me again. H, are you at home? In your room on the second floor. She asked me in the same tone of voice as before, and I knew it would be the death of me if I told her. So I told her I was in my room and not in the loo. Then about 5 minutes later, I was beginning to calm down, and I thought I could get out of the bathroom now. When, knock knock, someone knocked on the door outside. My fear had reached its zenith. I was alone in my house. Knock knock came again. It's occupied, I said. Right after that, the voice whispered my name, H, into my ear, and I blacked out. Next, I was in a dream, and it was like sports day at school. An overexcited male voice was making an announcement and kept calling out my name, H, 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 H. Yes, I replied. The voice went, your legs have disappeared. My legs disappeared. Your arms have disappeared. My arms disappeared. Your eyes have disappeared. My eyes disappeared. You have disappeared. I disappeared. I screamed. I screamed. Then suddenly, someone let out an ear-splitting laugh. I got out of the bathroom and blacked out for about an hour at the wash basin. And then I had a similar dream the next evening. I was standing inside a park, which had a lot of old playground equipment on it. Again, I watched as another person in front of me began to go through the same experience I had just had. On the other end of the park, my friend was standing. Her name was T. And again, I heard the same announcer's voice. T has disappeared. T's legs have disappeared. T's eyes have disappeared. T disappeared. H is in the room on the second floor sleeping. Sleeping. An ear-splitting laugh followed, and I woke up again. Has anyone here ever experienced the same thing? And that's where the story ends. This next one is a comment on a site for spiritual and supernatural advice here in Japan. User's name is blocked and the author is not said as to who they are or what their situation is and why they've posted this, but they want a response and advice on a spiritual situation. And it's been translated here from Japanese to English, so it may be a little bit strange at parts, but I think you'll get most of what I'm trying to say here. Let me just read the story and you can tell me what you think. This happened when I had just moved to a new city and started a life of my own. One late night when I was walking home from a staff welcome party at the office. The apartment where I lived stood in the middle of a quiet residential area, and at night it was even quieter. Hardly any people were in the streets, and it was a little bit scary. I didn't pay too much attention to anything around me, but as I came closer to my apartment, I saw a woman who seemed to be staggering and stumbling down the street. I was about to get inside my apartment when the woman bumped into a van parked in front of the entrance and fell right down on her face. When I looked more closely, I noticed she was wearing sunglasses and had a white stick. Hurriedly, I ran to her and asked if she was all right. She muttered something to the effect of, "I'm fine," in a quiet and inarticulate voice. She seemed to still be in her 20s and also seemed visually impaired. I felt sorry for her walking alone in this cold, dark night, and I thought maybe I should lend some assistance, especially since she was visually impaired. "Where are you headed to?" I asked. The woman muttered again, "I'm visiting a friend who lives in an apartment around here, but I've lost my way. I don't know where I am right now. If you know this area, could you help me find it?" I thought it would be natural to help someone who is visually impaired, so I said okay. Please lead me by your arm and we can go together, she said. We walked arm in arm. The woman often asked me questions, such as, what do you see now? She led the way by giving me orders such as, we turn right here, we turn left here. It was getting very dark around us. At one point, a car drove past us and the light from it fell on her face. I got a glimpse of her eyes for the first time, and behind them, I could swear she was watching me with her expression. This definitely made me suspicious, and I began to feel scared about my situation. I found myself tightly in the woman's grip with my right arm and my left arm holding a bag. But I thought to myself, what if she really is handicapped? I felt a bit guilty about being suspicious. Also, the subjects she chose to talk about while we walked were a little bit bizarre. The person I'm about to see is also handicapped, she said. He is still in primary school and he has lost both of his arms. He has been depressed for a long time, so I made him a sweater. But I wasn't sure what to do with the arm parts. Listening to her was disturbing, to say the least, and one of the weirdest things I had ever experienced in my life. I almost felt like crying, but I held back the tears. The more we talked, the darker and quieter the streets became. I'd even began to think about maybe pretending to fight with her and suddenly run off. If necessary, I knew I'd have to get away. I think we are nearly there. Could you please tell me the apartment's name, she said. I told her the name and she said, okay, I'm fine now, thank you. She released me with no problems. I felt really bad about thinking suspicious things about her. But as soon as I began to calm down, I became suspicious of her again. For example, how did she know which way right or left was? It bothered me so much that I decided to see what she was going to do. Less than a minute, I saw the same woman coming down the stairs of the apartment with steady, light steps. So I had been right about her all along. She played a prank on me. I was going to make a complaint to her when I saw another person coming down the stairs. The person was a man, about in his late 20s, very fat and without arms. The pair kept looking around restlessly as if they were expecting someone. They kept whispering to each other, but I couldn't understand what they were saying. Then all of a sudden, the woman began to violently pull at the man's sweatshirt, almost as if she was trying to tear it apart. The man tried to resist, but in the end he got stripped of his clothes and he went down naked. He landed on the floor and rolled down the stairs. The sight of this naked, armless man, suddenly violent outburst of the woman, it was too much of a shock. I began to cry. I tried not to scream so they could not find me. I wanted to run, but my legs had turned to jelly. I was scared that they might see me and start chasing after me. The armless man was rolling on the ground and screaming incoherent words. The woman took something out that looked like a vacuum bottle from her bag and began to pour a large amount of some liquid all over the half-naked man. Steam began to pour out of the man and he screamed and screeched in pain. He let out a hair-raising scream, and before I knew it, I had to start running. No one from the neighborhood was coming out to look, and luckily, I finally was able to get away. Fortunately, no one came after me. I ran back to my apartment and locked myself in. Tears were pouring down my face and I was shaking when I finally did. I still wonder what I saw. Has anyone ever had a similar experience before? This happened 6 years ago. There's more to this story, but I don't know if I should write it. And it just ends there. Interesting. Tell me what you think. This next one's called Family's Odd Behavior, and it comes from supposedly a blog which is now defunct and was written by a high school girl who no longer keeps the blog, copied by others who collect supernatural experience stories. So let's go ahead and get started. This is an unbelievable story that really happened to me. It all happened when I was 15 years old. I was living with my mom, my dad, and my little brother. On the New Year's Eve, we were watching TV, and I went to bed hoping I would have a nice dream, but instead I had a nightmare. Can't remember exactly what happened, but I woke up suddenly in the middle of the night. I could hear my heart beating very fast, and my whole body was drenched in cold sweat, as if someone had poured water on my back. I sat bolt upright on my bed and stayed there for a while. This is just great. A nightmare on New Year's Day, I thought with irritation. And as I didn't feel like going back to sleep straight away, I went to the living room to get a drink, where our refrigerator is. I entered the living room, and somehow all my family were there sitting on the sofa, huddled together in front of the TV, even though it was well past midnight. I didn't check the clock, but it was probably around 2 a.m. in the morning. Also, there were usually no programs on TV at that time. They were just showing some news. This part is also vague. What's more, there was no sound on the TV, and every single window was open inside, making the room freezing. Obviously, something strange was going on. I went cold all over. What the hell are you doing? What's gotten into your heads? Trembling, I yelled at them. My little brother replied, "But the voice was too quiet to make out, and he started crying. My parents shut the windows, turned off the TV, and while not speaking a single word and showing no emotion on their faces, they pointed at my little brother, who was still crying, like they wanted him to go to bed, and they wanted to go back to their rooms. Witnessing such a creepy incident on the very first day of the New Year's disturbed me a lot, and I no longer felt like sleeping. I stayed up until morning reading comic books in my room. In the morning, I asked my parents what they were doing in the middle of the night, and they both looked at me like, "What the hell are you talking about?" There's a huge difference between disbelieving faces I saw that day and the emotionless faces I saw the night before, and I became a bit panicked. Well, I knew my friends wouldn't believe me if I told them, and I just dumped my girlfriend the previous month. I concluded that I saw a hallucination due to stress. Some days later, I again woke up during the night because of a nightmare. This time, I sort of remember what had happened in the dream. It was about getting hit on the back of my head. Strangely, even after I woke up, my head still hurt. And somehow I was thinking nonsense like, I will be safe in the convenience store. I also got obsessed with the thought, I've been attacked by a ghost. And in a panic, I ran to the living room, but no one was there. The room smelled like something had been burning in it, maybe because we had had meat for supper. And I remember the strange incident that happened in the room on New Year's Day. I ended up spending a sleepless night yet again. Around the beginning of February, my body started to itch all over. I thought at first I had a dry skin condition, but I felt strange burning sensations, especially around my back and my head. I kept scratching at these places. It seemed to only get worse, and I went to the dermatologist and got some ointment. I was going to rub it on after a bath when my brother said, "Can I do it for you?" I showed him my back, and then he hit me with his palm really hard in the middle of my back. It hurt so much that I shouted angry at him, saying, "What are you doing?" My little brother always cried when I shouted at him. So, very soon his eyes became watery. Just when I thought, oh no, he's gonna cry, tears started streaming down his cheeks. The strange expression of his face began to lose its color, and in the end, he was crying but without any expression on his face. It was so creepy, and when I looked at my parents, they were crying too, with no expression on their face, standing in the hallway. Now I was totally lost. When I looked at them closely, they seemed like they were trying to say something to me, but I couldn't understand what. It was all I could make out. Just then, everything around me turned red, and gradually it faded into a sepia color. I felt consciousness leaving me. That was what I thought, but the next moment I found myself transported to a completely different place. But the place, however, was familiar to me. And after some hard thinking, I recognized it was my cousin's house. My uncle was looking down at me with a worried face. Huh? How did I get here? I didn't know what was going on. Soon, people started coming into the room. I made a guess that up until then, everything had been a dream, but I didn't understand why I was in my uncle's house, or why my grandparents were there, or why I was bandaged everywhere. I began to panic. Maybe we shouldn't tell him anything, because he doesn't remember what happened, I heard my grandpa say. But my uncle replied, "We must tell him. The offender hasn't been caught, and the police is going to come and question him."
Then my uncle told me everything. Someone set fire to my house on the 1st of January, and the house completely burnt down. I survived by pure chance because I was in a convenience store at the time when the house was on fire. But it seemed I encountered the arsonist after all, and I was attacked with a kind of a bat and got hit on the back of my head and on my back and on many other places on my body, which resulted in the loss of memory. After the attack, I was immediately admitted to the hospital. For some time, my life hanged in the balance. When I got better, I was moved to my uncle's house, and now it was already March. For the last 2 months, I had suffered amnesia. I had been undergoing rehabilitation, and it seemed only now I had fully recovered my memories. I cried and cried, because I lost all the things important to me in my life, and I had spent the whole 2 months not knowing it. My grandparents were looking at me with pained expressions. My uncle looked away. My grandparents finally began to cry, and we all just kept crying together. My body was covered with bruises. I was bandaged like a mummy, and every time I bent my limbs, a stinging pain went through me. With the windows, which were now wide open on a cold winter night, my family huddled together on the sofa with expressionless faces. The nightmare in which I was hit by a strange man, everything around me turning red, all the things now fit together like pieces in a jigsaw puzzle. So apparently that's an account of someone who went through some really traumatic experiences and what they actually saw in their brain. Not anything really supernatural, but maybe the spiritual world trying to tell them something is what they thought, and so they posted it to that site. Interesting story. Guys, that's it for this episode of Summer Horror Special. It was interesting and a little bit creepy to research this stuff. I gotta admit, most of these stories I had never read before, and it took a lot of research to find these deep, kind of hidden creepypastas, especially the ones where the authors didn't want to be named and stuff like that. While doing this, a little backstory of something that really did happen while I was researching this. My wife started to complain of having back pains, like feeling like something heavy was on her back. And she's really spiritual. She's a very devout Buddhist. We even have a brother-in-law who is a priest in the family, a Buddhist priest. And so she's very into those type of things. She's got kind of a connect with that part of the world. And she told me that she felt like I had been reading something that had to do with ghosts or the supernatural. I had never told her that, never let her know what I was researching. I never talked to her about my videos. And she said she felt like her spirit or her heart was heavy with sadness, like when she had visited the caves in Okinawa where the Okinawan soldiers had burrowed in to try and survive when the American soldiers came to destroy the place, and a lot of them were killed, which is a really sad place to go to if you guys have ever been there. She said she felt that same great burden that she felt when she visited that place, and I told her nothing about what I was researching or anything like that, so a little bit freaky that she got that feeling. And she actually got like those pains in her back and the weight feeling on her back, and you know, she actually went to one of her spiritual guidances and different part of Nagoya where her brother has a temple, and got some help from them, and luckily she feels okay now. But I gotta tell you, it makes it a little bit more freaky. Until next time, I hope you guys enjoyed it. This was Summer Horror Special.